A billionaire executive, Natalie Harrington, hires a driver, Jake Donovan, to pretend to be her boyfriend at a wedding party. Little did she know that. What could go wrong when pretending to be something you're not seems like the perfect solution. Natalie thought she had everything under control, but are things really that simple? Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching the video from. And don't forget to subscribe. Natalie stood in her expansive office, a lavish space filled with sleek furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. The sunlight poured in, illuminating the rich mahogany desk that held an array of files, a crystal vase filled with fresh lilies, and a framed photo that caught her eye. She walked over to the desk and picked up the photograph, her fingers gently tracing the smiling faces captured within it. It was a picture from her engagement day, a moment frozen in time where she and Ryan looked blissfully happy, filled with dreams and promises. But that was before everything changed. Staring at the image, a familiar wave of nostalgia washed over her, closely followed by a sharp pang of frustration. How had she ended up here, alone and yearning for something that felt so distant? Ryan had been her everything, and even though they had parted ways nearly a year ago, he still had a hold on her heart that she couldn't quite shake off. "I'm over him," she muttered under her breath, attempting to convince herself of a truth that felt more like a lie. Determined to prove to herself and to Ryan that she had moved on, Natalie paced across the room, her heels clicking rhythmically against the polished floor. She needed a plan, something bold that would showcase her independence and newfound confidence. The upcoming wedding of a mutual friend loomed ahead, and Ryan would be there. This was the perfect opportunity for a grand statement. She would show him that she was thriving, that she didn't need him to be happy. Just as the gears in her mind were turning, the door swung open and Abigail, her best friend and unwavering support, strode in. Abigail was a whirlwind of energy, her long, dark hair bouncing as she entered. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she remarked, her brow furrowing as she assessed Natalie's tense demeanor. Natalie forced a smile, but Abigail wasn't buying it. "What's going on? You've been staring at that photo for too long. Spill it." Sighing, Natalie placed the picture back on the desk, her resolve hardening. "I need to show Ryan that I've moved on," she declared. "I'm going to hire a fake boyfriend for the wedding." Abigail's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and amusement dancing across her features. "A fake boyfriend? You can't be serious." "I am," Natalie replied, her voice steady. "I want him to see that I'm doing well without him. I want to make him jealous." Abigail crossed her arms, considering the idea. "All right, I'm in, but we need to find someone charming and suitable. You can't just hire any random guy off the street." Natalie felt a rush of relief wash over her. With Abigail by her side, she felt more confident about her plan. "Exactly. Someone who can hold his own in a room filled with Ryan and his friends. We need to find the perfect guy." The two friends spent the next hour brainstorming what they would need in a perfect fake boyfriend. "He should be tall, charming, and able to make me look good," Natalie listed off, her heart racing with excitement. "And he has to be able to make small talk with my parents too. They'll be there." "Leave it to me," Abigail said with a grin, already pulling out her phone. "I have a few connections. Let's set up some interviews. I'm sure we can find someone who fits the bill." As the days passed, they sifted through a comical array of candidates, from an awkward accountant who barely made eye contact to a wannabe actor who spent more time admiring himself in the mirror than engaging with them. Each interview was more absurd than the last. Natalie found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, but the perfect match still eluded them. "Maybe we should just call it off," Natalie joked one afternoon, rolling her eyes after yet another disastrous meeting. "I could go alone and just pretend to be uninterested in Ryan. That might work, right?" Abigail shook her head, her expression resolute. "No way. You need to show up with someone. We're not giving up yet." Just then, the doorbell rang, and Abigail jumped up, excitement lighting her eyes. "This could be the one. I have a good feeling about this guy." Natalie followed Abigail to the door, her heart pounding. When Abigail opened it, the sight that greeted them made Natalie's breath hitch in her throat. Standing there was Jake, a tall and strikingly handsome driver with tousled dark hair, and a warm smile that seemed to light up the room. He looked effortlessly cool in a fitted black shirt and jeans, his demeanor exuding a casual charm that instantly put her at ease. "Hi, I'm Jake," he introduced himself, extending a hand to both women. His voice was deep and inviting, and Natalie couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement. "Nice to meet you, Jake. I'm Natalie, and this is my best friend, Abigail," she said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, and she felt a spark of connection that was unexpected. "Thanks for having me. I hear you need a +1 for a wedding?" Jake said, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Yes, but it's a bit complicated," Abigail started, glancing at Natalie, who nodded encouragingly. "We need someone who can act like my boyfriend for the evening," Natalie explained, her nerves creeping back. "It's a bit of a situation with my ex." Jake raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "I'm all ears. What's the plan?" As Abigail detailed the situation, Natalie observed Jake closely. He listened intently, his expression earnest and engaged. There was something genuine about him, something that made her feel as though he understood the gravity of the task ahead. "So, what do you think? Do you think you can pull it off?" Abigail asked, her tone teasing but serious. Jake leaned back against the doorframe, a playful smile on his lips. "I think I can manage. I have a knack for blending into different situations. Besides, it sounds like it could be fun." Natalie felt a wave of relief wash over her. "You really think so? I mean, I want to make a good impression, but I also don't want to make things awkward." "Trust me," Jake replied, his voice steady. "Just treat me like your real boyfriend, and I'll do the rest. I'll make sure you look good." A smile broke across Natalie's face, and she felt a rush of excitement. There was something about Jake that made her feel alive, and the prospect of having him by her side for the wedding seemed more appealing than she had anticipated. "Okay, let's do this," she said, her determination solidifying. "You're hired." As they moved forward with the preparations, Natalie couldn't shake the feeling that this decision would change everything. Little did she know, the evening ahead would unravel secrets and truths she never anticipated. Not just about Jake, but about herself as well. The stage was set, and the story was just beginning. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions brewing inside Natalie. She stood in front of her lavish mirror, the golden light reflecting off her designer gown, accentuating her every curve. Her heart raced as she adjusted the delicate necklace Ryan had once gifted her, an old habit she hadn't quite shaken off. "I need to do this," she whispered to her reflection, a mantra of empowerment. "Hey, superstar!" Abigail burst into the room, her vibrant energy filling the space. "Are we ready to show Ryan what he's missing?" She wore a confident smile, adjusting her own dress, a striking red that seemed to echo her fiery personality. Natalie turned, giving her best friend a soft smile. "I'm trying, but this feels so surreal." She fiddled with the hem of her dress, the fabric smooth beneath her fingers. "What if it backfires? What if he sees right through this?" Abigail stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Natalie's shoulder. "Natalie, you're a powerhouse. You walk into any room and command attention. Just think of it as a business meeting, only with more dancing and a lot more champagne." That made Natalie chuckle, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "Right, just a meeting. With my ex-fiancé and my fake boyfriend." She took a deep breath, the scent of her floral perfume wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. "Okay, let's do this." As they finished getting ready, Abigail slipped on her earrings and surveyed Natalie critically. "You look stunning. Just remember, it's all about confidence. And you've got this." With one last look in the mirror, Natalie nodded. "Let's go make an impression." Abigail linked her arm through Natalie's, and together they headed out, excitement bubbling between them. The wedding venue was a grand affair, an elegant estate adorned with twinkling fairy lights and floral arrangements that seemed to bloom from a fairy tale. As they stepped out of the car, Jake was waiting, leaning casually against the vehicle, a charming smile on his face. He was dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his hair perfectly tousled. He looked every bit the part of the boyfriend Natalie needed. "Ready to steal the show?" Jake asked, his voice smooth as silk. Natalie felt a rush of adrenaline. Ready as I'll ever be. She glanced at Abigail, who shot her a thumbs up. As they walked toward the entrance, the chatter of guests filled the air, laughter and clinking glasses punctuating the atmosphere. The moment they stepped inside, Jake's presence became magnetic. Heads turned, eyes followed, and Natalie felt a surge of confidence wash over her. The weight of her past began to feel lighter, as if Jake's charm was a shield against her insecurities. "Wow, you two look incredible together," a guest exclaimed, a familiar face from Ryan's side of the family. Natalie smiled politely, but her heart raced as she spotted Ryan across the room, talking animatedly with a couple of friends. He looked as handsome as ever, his eyes sparkling with laughter. But the moment he saw her, his expression changed. "Let's get some drinks," Jake suggested, sensing her discomfort. He led her to the bar, where they ordered champagne, the bubbles fizzing up in the glasses like her nerves. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Natalie echoed, clinking her glass against his. She took a sip, letting the cool liquid settle her nerves. As they stood together, she could feel the energy between them, the easy banter, the shared glances. It was as if they had known each other far longer than just a few hours. As the cocktail hour progressed, laughter and chatter filled the air. Abigail flitted from group to group, ensuring they were the center of attention. Natalie felt a surge of gratitude for her friend's unwavering support. And then, amid the clamor, Ryan approached, his expression a mix of curiosity and surprise. "Natalie," he said, his voice low and slightly incredulous. "I didn't expect to see you here with someone." Natalie's heart raced. She turned to Jake, who stood tall and confident beside her. "Ryan, this is Jake," she introduced, her voice steadier than she felt. "My boyfriend." Jake extended his hand, a smile playing on his lips. "Nice to meet you, Ryan. I've heard a lot about you." Ryan shook Jake's hand, but his eyes didn't leave Natalie's. "Likewise," he replied, his tone flat. The tension in the air was palpable, a crackling reminder of their shared history. Natalie's heart raced, but she held her ground. "Jake and I have been seeing each other for a while now," she added, feeling a mix of pride and defiance. "I'm really happy." Ryan's expression shifted for a moment, a flash of something. Jealousy? Regret? Crossing his features before he masked it with a smile. "That's great, really. I'm happy for you." The polite exchange felt like a battlefield, each word a carefully chosen weapon. Natalie could sense the weight of their past lingering in the air, heavy and unresolved. "Well, I should let you two catch up," Jake said, stepping back slightly. "I'll grab us some more drinks." He flashed her a reassuring smile before walking away. For a brief moment, it was just Natalie and Ryan, the world around them fading. "You look beautiful," he said softly, his eyes searching hers. "Thank you," she replied, her heart pounding. "You look good too." An awkward silence hung between them, filled with unspoken words and memories. "So, you've moved on?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Natalie hesitated, the truth of her feelings swirling inside her. "I'm trying to," she finally admitted, her gaze steady. "I needed to show you that I can be happy without you." Ryan's expression tightened, a flicker of pain passing over his face. "I never wanted you to think you couldn't be happy," he said, his voice low. I didn't know how to make it work between us." Before Natalie could respond, Jake returned, holding 2 drinks. "What did I miss?" he asked, a playful grin on his face. "Nothing much," Natalie replied, grateful for the interruption. She took her drink and turned back to Ryan. "I hope you enjoy the wedding." As they walked away, Natalie felt a rush of conflicting emotions. She was proud of herself for standing her ground, but the encounter left a knot in her stomach. Jake's presence beside her was a comfort, but the shadow of her past loomed large, reminding her that moving on was never as simple as it seemed. As the evening unfolded, laughter and music filled the air, but Natalie found herself lost in thought. Jake, sensing her distraction, leaned closer. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and concerned. She forced a smile, grateful for his genuine interest. Yeah, just a lot to process. You're doing better than you think, he encouraged, his gaze warm. You've got this. Natalie felt a flicker of hope at his words. Perhaps tonight would be the turning point she needed. Perhaps she could truly embrace this new chapter of her life. As they moved into the next phase of the evening, she resolved to let go of her past and embrace the possibilities of the present, if only for one night. As the evening unfolded, the lavish wedding reception buzzed with laughter and music, the dance floor illuminated by twinkling fairy lights. Natalie found herself standing at the edge of the dance floor, a glass of champagne in hand, watching the guests mingle and twirl in their elegant attire. Jake, her charming driver-turned-fake boyfriend, was at her side, his easy smile and engaging conversation making her feel lighter than she had in weeks. "Can you believe how over-the-top this is?" Jake mused, glancing around at the glittering decorations. "I mean, who needs a fountain of champagne? It's like something out of a movie." Natalie laughed, the sound bubbling up from her chest. "Right? I kept expecting someone to walk in with a pet tiger or something. I half expected Ryan to show up in a tuxedo made of diamonds." Jake raised an eyebrow, feigning shock. "Now that would be a sight. But seriously, it's beautiful, isn't it? The wedding. I mean, it feels like a fairy tale." "Yeah, it does," Natalie admitted, her gaze inadvertently drifting toward Ryan, who was across the room. He stood in a cluster of guests, his eyes scanning the crowd, but they always seemed to return to her. A pang of nostalgia hit her, a reminder of the dreams she once had about this very day. Yet, standing next to Jake, she felt a flutter of something different, a connection that was unexpected but welcomed. "Hey, let's do a toast," Jake suggested, lifting his glass. "To new beginnings." Natalie raised her glass to meet his, their eyes locking for a brief moment that sent a thrill through her. "To new beginnings," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. As they both took a sip, she felt the initial tension of the evening begin to melt away. They began to chat more freely, sharing stories about their lives. Natalie learned that Jake had a passion for photography, often capturing the beauty of the city during his downtime. "It's my escape," he explained, a soft light in his eyes. "I love finding those hidden spots that most people overlook. And here I thought you were just a driver," Natalie teased, leaning in slightly, intrigued. Jake chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that made her smile. "I guess I'm a little more than what meets the eye. Just like you." Natalie felt her cheeks heat up, the compliment catching her off guard. "I'm not that interesting, really. Just a corporate executive trying to make her mark," she replied, trying to downplay her success. "But you are interesting," he insisted, his gaze steady. "You've built something for yourself, and that's impressive. Not everyone can say they've achieved what you have." His words struck a chord within her. She was used to being admired for her accomplishments, but hearing it from Jake felt different. It felt personal, sincere. Before she could respond, Abigail appeared, her face flushed with excitement. "You two look like you're having a moment. Are we ready for a dance?" Natalie glanced at Jake, who shrugged playfully. "I suppose we should show off those dance moves, right?" With a chuckle, they made their way to the dance floor. As the music swelled, Natalie felt a surge of energy, a thrilling reminder of her youth. She turned to Jake, who took her hand in his, leading her into the rhythm of the music. Their bodies moved in sync, laughter spilling out as they spun and twirled among the crowd. "Who knew you could dance like this?" Natalie teased, her heart racing with exhilaration. Jake grinned, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. Just wait until you see my moonwalk." Natalie laughed, the sound ringing out as she imagined him attempting such a feat. The moment felt light and carefree, a stark contrast to the weight of her thoughts earlier in the evening. For the first time that night, she felt truly free. As they danced, Ryan watched from the sidelines, his expression darkening as he observed Natalie's joy. He turned to Abigail, who stood nearby, concern etched on her face. "Is she really okay with this?" he asked, his voice low, almost strained. Abigail crossed her arms, her brow furrowing. "She hired him to make you jealous, Ryan, but it looks like she's having a good time. Isn't that what you wanted?" Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I don't want her to be just fine. I want her to be happy with me. Abigail shook her head, her gaze softening. You had that chance, Ryan. You let her go. You need to face that. He sighed, his shoulders slumping. I know, but seeing her like this, I can't help but feel like I messed up. Meanwhile, Natalie and Jake were lost in their own world, spinning and laughing, the moment stretching forever. Yet, in the back of her mind, Natalie could feel Ryan's gaze on her. She stole a glance over her shoulder, catching his eye. The look on his face was a mix of longing and regret, and it sent a shiver down her spine. Are you okay? Jake asked, concern creeping into his voice as he noticed her sudden change in demeanor. Natalie shook her head, trying to shake off the feeling. Yeah, I didn't expect to see him looking at me like that. Jake followed her gaze, his expression hardening slightly as he saw Ryan standing there, his eyes locked on Natalie. He seems to be having a hard time letting go. Maybe he is, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I can't keep living in the past. Jake placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his touch grounding her. Then don't. Live in the moment. You deserve to enjoy tonight. Just as they were about to dance again, a voice broke through the laughter and music, a familiar, disapproving voice that none of them expected to hear. Natalie, there you are. Natalie froze, her heart sinking as she turned to see Ryan's mother, Margaret, approaching with an air of authority. She was impeccably dressed, but the sharpness of her features and the tightness of her lips spoke volumes. Margaret, Natalie said, forcing a smile, her stomach twisting in knots. Margaret's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. I see you've moved on quite well, haven't you? With the driver. Her tone dripped with condescension, and the tension in the air thickened. Mom, please, Ryan interjected, stepping forward. This isn't the time. But Margaret waved him off, her focus entirely on Natalie. You broke my son's heart, you know that? And now you flaunt this charade in front of him? It's disrespectful. Natalie's breath hitched, the sting of those words landing heavily. I'm not flaunting anything, Margaret. This is just what? Margaret interrupted, her voice rising. Just a way to make him jealous? Or to prove you're better off without him? Because you're not. You never were. Jake, who had remained quiet until now, stepped forward, his expression serious. With all due respect, Mrs. Montgomery, this is not fair. Natalie deserves to be happy, and it's clear she is. Margaret turned her gaze to him, surprise flickering across her features. And you think she'll find happiness with you? You're just a distraction. Natalie felt a rush of panic at the confrontation, her heart racing as she glanced between Jake and Ryan, who now stood with an intense expression. This isn't the place for this conversation, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Can we just enjoy the evening? But the damage was done. The tension crackled between them, and Natalie felt the weight of expectations, judgments, and unresolved feelings threatening to suffocate the moment they had created. The atmosphere in the opulent wedding hall shifted abruptly as Jake stepped forward, his expression serious. The elegant chandeliers flickered above, casting a warm glow over the guests who had turned their attention to the unfolding confrontation. Natalie's heart raced, her mind grappling with the unexpected turn of events. She had anticipated some awkwardness, perhaps a little jealousy from Ryan, but she had never imagined that Jake would rise to her defense like this. Mrs. Peterson, Jake began, addressing Ryan's mother with a tone that balanced respect and firmness. I think it's important to remember that the past is just that, the past. Natalie has moved on, and so should you. Natalie's eyes widened, surprise coursing through her. She had barely known Jake for a day, yet he was standing up for her as if he had known her for years. The guests murmured, intrigued by the unfolding drama. Ryan's mother looked taken aback, her mouth opening slightly in disbelief. How dare you speak to me like that? She shot back, her voice sharp as a knife. You have no idea what my son has gone through because of her. Maybe not, Jake replied calmly, but I know what it's like to move forward. We all have our scars, don't we? He turned slightly, casting a glance at Natalie, whose heart fluttered at the sincerity in his eyes. Natalie deserves to be happy, just like anyone else. Is that why you're here? Ryan's mother pressed, her voice dripping with skepticism. To play the role of the perfect boyfriend? You think she can just replace my son? The tension in the air was palpable, a thick fog of unresolved emotions. Natalie felt her cheeks flush with a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. She was caught in the crossfire of past grievances and present loyalties. With a heavy sigh, Ryan stepped forward, attempting to defuse the situation. "Mom, please. This isn't helping anyone," he said, his voice strained but steady. "Natalie and I have our history, and it's complicated. But I won't let you attack her like this. Complicated doesn't even begin to cover it, Ryan," his mother retorted, her eyes narrowing. "You think I want to see you with someone who broke your heart?" "Enough," Jake interjected, his voice rising slightly as he took a step closer to Natalie, as if to protect her from the verbal onslaught. "Natalie is not to blame for what happened between you two. People grow, they change. She deserves to be treated with respect. We're here to celebrate love, not to dredge up old wounds." As his words hung in the air, a silence fell over the group. Natalie's heart raced, a mix of admiration and unease. She had never expected this from Jake, a man she had only just met. The way he stood there, unwavering and strong, stirred something deep within her. But what was she getting into? The tension in the room shifted, the guests exchanging glances, some nodding in agreement with Jake's defense of Natalie. The atmosphere was electric, transforming from one of confrontation to a collective realization that perhaps there was more to this story than met the eye. "Jake," Natalie said softly, a hint of confusion in her voice. "You don't have to do this." "Maybe not," he replied, his gaze steady on hers. "But I want to. You deserve someone who stands by you, especially when it matters." "Jake worked for my family," Ryan interjected, a note of disbelief creeping into his voice. "How do you know her? Why are you pretending to be her boyfriend?" Jake's expression turned serious. "I didn't come here to stir up trouble, Ryan. I'm here because Natalie hired me. But what started as a job has become something more." He paused, letting that sink in. "I admire her strength, and I can see the way you look at her. It's clear there's still something between you." Natalie felt the weight of his words pressing on her chest. The tension between the three of them was thick enough to slice. She bit her lip, contemplating the implications of Jake's admission. "Is that true, Natalie?" Ryan asked, his voice softer now, almost vulnerable. "Is there something still between us?" Before she could respond, Jake stepped forward once more, his assertiveness returning. "You both need to be honest with each other. Don't let this night end with unresolved feelings and bitterness. It's not fair to either of you." Natalie's heart raced as she tried to process everything. The weight of Jake's words hung heavily in the air, like a storm cloud ready to burst. She glanced between the two men, her emotions a tangled web of confusion and longing. "Jake, I appreciate what you're doing," she began, her voice steady but soft. "But I can't deny the history I share with Ryan. I loved him and I still—" She paused, swallowed hard, unsure of how to articulate her feelings. "I still care about him." Ryan's expression softened, hope flickering in his eyes. "I've never stopped caring about you, Natalie. I made mistakes, and I regret how things ended between us. Maybe we can figure this out together." "Together?" Jake interjected, his brow furrowing. "Is that what you really want, Ryan? To go back to a relationship that was built on unresolved issues?" "Jake, Ryan began, but Jake cut him off. "No, let's be real here," Jake continued. "You both need to face the truth about what you want. Love isn't just about feelings. It's about timing and commitment. If you're serious about rekindling what you had, then you need to show Natalie that you're willing to change." The room was still, the air thick with anticipation as everyone awaited Ryan's response. Natalie's heart raced, torn between the familiarity of her past with Ryan and the unexpected connection she felt with Jake. "I can change," Ryan said, his voice earnest. "I've grown since we split. I've had time to think about what went wrong, and I want to make things right. Is that enough?" Jake pressed, his gaze unyielding. "Can you truly show her that you're worth the risk?" Natalie felt a rush of conflicting emotions. She was overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, the gravity of the choices laid before her. Could she really allow herself to be vulnerable with Ryan again? Or was this newfound chemistry with Jake something she couldn't ignore? "Can we all just take a breath?" she finally said, her voice breaking through the tension. "This is a lot to process. I need a moment." She stepped back, feeling the weight of their gazes upon her as she walked away. The wedding hall felt suffocating, the laughter and music fading into the background as she sought a moment of clarity. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin, a welcome reprieve from the chaos inside. Standing beneath the starlit sky, she took a deep breath, trying to sort through her feelings. She had thought that hiring a fake boyfriend would simplify things, but instead, it had complicated everything. Abigail found her leaning against a stone pillar, her expression pensive. "There you are," her friend said softly, concern etched on her face. "What happened back there?" "I don't know, Abby," Natalie confessed, her voice trembling. "I feel like everything I thought I wanted is slipping through my fingers. Jake stood up for me, and now I'm questioning everything." Abigail stepped closer, her eyes searching Natalie's. "What do you really want? Not what you think you should want, but what you truly desire." Natalie hesitated, the answer swirling just beyond her reach. "I want to be happy, but I don't know if that happiness lies with Ryan or Jake. They both bring out something different in me. Sometimes the heart is messy," Abigail said, her tone gentle yet firm. "You have to follow it, even if it's scary. Just be honest with yourself." "I know," Natalie said, her heart aching with the weight of uncertainty. "But how do I choose? How do I know who to trust?" Abigail smiled softly, placing a reassuring hand on Natalie's shoulder. "You'll figure it out. Just remember, you deserve someone who sees you for who you are, someone who wants to grow with you." As Natalie stood outside, her heart a tempest of emotions, she knew she had to make a choice. But for now, she just needed a moment to breathe, to think, and to feel the cool night air against her skin. Because deep down, she understood that whatever path she chose, it had to be authentic, true to herself and to the love that she sought. Outside the grand wedding venue, the soft glow of fairy lights twinkled like stars against the night sky. Natalie found herself in a secluded corner of the garden, away from the laughter and music that echoed from the reception. The air was cool and refreshing, but her heart felt heavy as she leaned against a marble pillar, lost in thought. She could hear the distant chatter of guests, mingling and celebrating, but all she could focus on were the conflicting emotions swirling inside her. Just then, Abigail appeared, her heels clicking softly against the cobblestone path. She approached with a concerned look etched on her face. "There you are. I was starting to worry," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You've been gone for a while. Are you okay?" Natalie sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know, Abby. I thought I was ready to show Ryan that I've moved on. But now, with Jake, it's all so complicated." She glanced back at the venue, where the lights flickered like fireflies. "I didn't expect to feel this way about him. It's like I'm forgetting why I hired him in the first place." Abigail stepped closer, a reassuring presence. "It's completely normal to feel confused, Nat. You're human, after all. But I think you need to be honest with yourself. What do you really want?" "I want to be independent, to show Ryan that I'm not the same person I was when we were together," Natalie confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "But then there's Jake. He's charming and funny, and when we're together, it feels real. I didn't plan for this. Love is messy, Nat. It doesn't always follow the script we write for ourselves," Abigail said, her eyes sparkling with understanding. "You need to decide what your heart truly wants. Are you still in love with Ryan, or is it just the idea of him?" "I thought I was over him," Natalie admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But seeing him tonight, it brought back so many memories. I still care about him, but I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want something different." "Then you need to confront that feeling. Talk to Ryan, but also talk to Jake. Figure out where you stand with both of them," Abigail encouraged, placing a supportive hand on Natalie's shoulder. "You deserve to be happy, and that means being honest with yourself and everyone involved." As the two friends stood in the quiet of the garden, Natalie felt a wave of determination wash over her. "You're right. I can't keep running from this. I'll talk to Ryan. I need to know if we have a chance at something real again, or if it's just my heart holding on to the past." Abigail smiled, proud of her friend. "That's the spirit. Just be honest. Whatever happens, I'll be right here for you." With a newfound resolve, Natalie took a deep breath and headed back inside, Abigail by her side. The lively atmosphere enveloped them once more, but Natalie's heart raced at the thought of confronting Ryan. She scanned the room, her eyes finally landing on him. He was standing by the bar, laughing with a group of friends. But when their eyes met, his smile faded slightly, revealing a hint of uncertainty. "Wish me luck," Natalie said to Abigail, who nodded encouragingly. With her friend's support, she felt ready to face whatever came next. As she approached Ryan, the noise of the reception faded into the background. It was just the two of them now, and the air was thick with unspoken words. "Hey, Ryan," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Hey, Natalie," he replied, his tone casual but his eyes searching. "You look beautiful tonight." "Thank you. You look good too," she said, her heart pounding. "Can we talk? I need to ask you something." "Sure," he said, glancing around the room as if looking for an escape. "What's up? Can we step outside for a moment?" she asked, her voice firm. Ryan hesitated, but then nodded, following her through the doors into the cool night air. Once outside, Natalie took a deep breath. "I didn't hire Jake just to make you jealous. It was part of the plan. But," she hesitated, searching for the right words, "I didn't expect to connect with him like I did." Ryan's expression darkened, and he crossed his arms. "So, you're saying you actually like him?" "It's not that simple," Natalie replied, frustration creeping into her voice. "I have feelings for you, Ryan. I always have. But I also need to know if you feel the same way, or if this is just nostalgia." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, looking pained. "I've missed you, Natalie. Every day since we broke up, I've thought about you. But I know that things were complicated between us. We didn't end on good terms." "I know," she admitted, her heart aching. "But I've changed. I've learned a lot since then. I want to know if there's still a chance for us." Ryan shifted his weight, his gaze drifting to the stars above. I don't know. Seeing you with Jake tonight, it stirred up a lot of feelings I thought I'd buried. He seems like a great guy." "Jake is a great guy," she said, her voice rising slightly. "But he's not just a prop for me. He's genuine, and it's confusing because I didn't expect to feel this way." "Then what do you want, Natalie?" he asked, his frustration evident. "Do you want me, or him?" "I want the truth," she replied, her eyes locking onto his. "I want to know if you're still in love with me, or if I'm just a memory you can't let go of." Ryan took a deep breath, his expression softening. "I'm still in love with you, Natalie. I never stopped. But I also know that I hurt you, and I don't want to put you through that again." The air between them crackled with emotion, and Natalie felt her heart swell. What if we worked on it? Could we try again, without the past weighing us down? Just then, the door to the venue swung open, and Jake stepped out, his expression shifting from casual to tense as he saw the two of them together. "Natalie, can I talk to you for a moment?" Ryan's posture stiffened, and Natalie felt a pang of anxiety. "Jake, this isn't a good time." "Actually, it is," Jake said firmly, stepping closer. "I need to be honest with you both." Natalie glanced between the two men, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" Jake took a deep breath, his expression serious. "I didn't come here just to play a role. I was hired to make Natalie happy, but I've developed real feelings for her. I care about you, Natalie, and I don't want to hide that anymore." The tension in the air thickened, and Natalie felt pulled in two directions. Here she was, standing between two men who each held a piece of her heart. Ryan's eyes darkened with jealousy, while Jake's were filled with sincerity. "Jake, Natalie started, her mind racing. "This is all so sudden." But before she could finish, Ryan stepped forward, his voice icy. "What are your intentions with her, Jake? You need to be clear." Jake met Ryan's gaze head-on, unflinching. "I care about her, Ryan, and I know you two have a history, but I'm not going to back down. Natalie deserves to be happy, whether it's with you or with me. The air crackled with tension as Natalie felt the weight of their words. She realized that this was the moment she had been avoiding for so long. A confrontation that would decide not just her future, but also the fate of the relationships she held dear. "Guys, please," Natalie pleaded, her voice rising. "This isn't a competition. I need to figure out what I want without you two fighting over me." The night stretched on, and the future loomed uncertainly before her. Natalie knew that whatever happened next would shape her life in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. She took a deep breath, preparing to confront not just Ryan and Jake, but also the truths that lay within her heart. The atmosphere inside the lavish wedding venue was electric, filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. However, in the midst of the celebration, Natalie felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. She stood there, her heart racing, as Ryan, her ex-fiancé, looked her directly in the eyes, vulnerability etched across his handsome face. "Natalie," he began, his voice low but clear, "I need to be honest with you. I never stopped loving you." Natalie was taken aback. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. She glanced at Jake, who stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable as he watched the exchange unfold. Her mind raced, grappling with the implications of Ryan's confession. "Ryan, she stammered, uncertainty flooding her voice. The last thing she expected was for him to declare his feelings so openly, especially in front of Jake. "Please, just hear me out," Ryan said, stepping closer, his gaze unwavering. "When we broke up, I thought it was what you wanted. I thought you wanted to be free, to chase your dreams without me holding you back. But I was wrong. I see you now, thriving, and it makes me realize how much I miss having you in my life. I want a second chance." A myriad of emotions washed over Natalie: confusion, nostalgia, anger, and a flicker of hope. "Ryan, we can't just go back to how things were. We had our reasons for ending things," she replied, her voice steadier now, though she felt her heart clenching at the memories of their past. "But we were so good together," Ryan insisted, frustration creeping into his tone. "I know I made mistakes, but I've changed. I've spent so much time reflecting, and I want to make things right. Can't you see that?" Natalie opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Abigail stepped in, sensing the tension escalating. "Ryan," she interjected, her voice firm yet sympathetic, "this isn't just about you. Natalie has her own life and her own choices to make now. You can't just drop a bomb like that and expect everything to fall into place." Ryan's gaze shifted to Abigail, a mix of anger and confusion flashing across his face. "I'm not trying to force her into anything. I just thought she deserved to know how I feel." "Knowing how you feel doesn't change the past," Abigail countered. "There's something else at play here." She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Jake, can you come here for a moment?" Jake hesitated, casting a quick glance between Natalie and Ryan, but then walked over, his expression calm but curious. "What's up?" Abigail turned to him, her voice steady. "Jake, there's something you need to tell them. Something they both deserve to know." The air grew tense as Jake's gaze shifted from Abigail to Ryan, then finally to Natalie. I didn't want this to come out like this," he said, his voice low. "But it's important. Ryan, you and I have more in common than you think." Ryan frowned, confusion evident in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" "I'm your estranged brother," Jake revealed, the words hanging heavily in the air. "After everything that happened with Natalie, our family fell apart. I was caught in the middle and, well, I left. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore." Natalie felt her heart drop. The revelation struck her like a lightning bolt, sending shockwaves through her. She looked between the two men, trying to process the implications of what Jake had just revealed. "You're brothers," she echoed, disbelief coloring her tone. "Yeah," Jake admitted, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I didn't want to complicate things, especially tonight. But I can't hide from my past anymore, and I can't pretend I don't care about you, Natalie." He paused, looking into her eyes with a depth of feeling that made her heart race. "I know this is a lot, but I care about you, and I want to be honest with you." Ryan stared at Jake, his expression shifting from anger to shock. "You've been lying to me this whole time?" he asked, his voice rising in disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't want to stir up old wounds," Jake replied, his voice calm. "But I also didn't want to watch you pine after someone who's clearly moved on. I thought maybe I could be the one to help her find happiness again by pretending to be her boyfriend." Ryan shot back, his frustration palpable. "That doesn't seem very genuine, does it?" "I was hired to do a job," Jake said, his tone firm. "But in that process, I realized I felt something real for Natalie. I didn't expect it, but it happened." The tension in the air was electric, and Natalie felt torn. Part of her wanted to comfort Jake, to reassure him that she appreciated his honesty. But the other part of her couldn't ignore Ryan's presence, the memories of their past flooding back, mingling with the new feelings she had developed for Jake. "Both of you," Abigail stepped in again, her voice calm yet authoritative, "need to realize that this is more than just a rivalry. It's about healing and understanding. You both have issues to work through, individually and together." "Abigail's right," Natalie said, her voice breaking slightly. "We all have our histories, and we can't keep living in those shadows. Ryan, I care about you, but I also need to figure out what I want. And Jake, your feelings matter too." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to choose between the two of you, but I can't ignore the fact that we all have to face our pasts." Ryan looked at her, his expression softening. "I understand, Natalie. I just want you to know how I feel. I miss us, and I want to fight for a chance to make things right. And I want the same," Jake added, his voice earnest. "But I want to be honest about my feelings. I don't want to hold you back, Natalie. You deserve to be happy, whether that's with me or with Ryan." Tears welled in Natalie's eyes as she processed their words. "Thank you for being honest with me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I need to sort through these feelings. It's not going to be easy, but I want to support both of you in finding closure with your past." A moment of silence enveloped them as the weight of the situation settled. Natalie felt a mix of resolve and uncertainty, knowing that this was just the beginning of a long journey ahead for all of them. As the music played softly in the background, she realized that true love wasn't just about romance. It was also about honesty, understanding, and the courage to face the past together. With newfound clarity, she took a step back, ready to embrace her independence and make choices that honored her heart. "Let's work on this together," she finally said, looking at both men. "We all deserve a chance to find our own happiness, and that starts with being open and honest about what we need moving forward." In that moment, both Ryan and Jake nodded, their expressions reflecting a mix of hope and understanding. They each had their battles to fight, but together, they could help each other heal. As Natalie stood there, surrounded by the complexity of love and friendship, she knew she was ready to embrace whatever came next.